Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Caitlin McGuire, and I am the Research and Education Administrator at the Bruyère Research Institute, and I will be moderating today's session. Today, we have Natalie Spence joining us to discuss crucial conversations. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few things about today's format. This is a reminder that the session is being recorded. There will be a Q&A period at the end of the presentation. So feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A function or use the raise your hand feature to ask a question out loud, and we will be able to unmute you. Okay, so it is now my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Natalie Spence. Natalie is an education coordinator with the Ontario CLRI at Bruyère. She has years of experience in bedside nursing, preceptorship, clinical instructing, and working with older adults in the subacute hospital and long-term care settings. In her role at CLRI, she works with project leads and communication team members to support education and knowledge translation activities in the long-term care sector. Natalie is also certified in crucial conversations for mastering dialogue and has been using the skills for years. So thank you so much for joining us today, Natalie. I'm going to pass it over to you now.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, and thank you everyone for joining today. Hope you are all having a wonderful, wonderful day so far. We're just going to be starting the presentation shortly, but I just have some introductory slides, that I just want to share with you. So as Caitlin mentioned, my name is Natalie Spence. I am an education coordinator with Ontario CLRI, and we are going to dive into crucial conversations, and we're going to work together to get unstuck. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. So the Ontario CLRI strengthens quality of life and care for residents across the province. We are a program of the Ministry of Long-Term Care that acts as a resource for the sector to enhance the health and well-being of people who live and work in long-term care. We do this by providing education and training, sharing research and innovations, and identifying and developing resources for long-term care homes. Partnering with the long-term care sector, we provide solutions for priority issues, including COVID-related challenges for homes and future workforce engagement. We are funded by the Government of Ontario and hosted at 3 different sites: Baycrest Health Sciences, located in Toronto, the Schlegel University of Waterloo Research Institute for Aging, located in Waterloo, and of course, with you all at Bruyère. I would like to start this presentation by acknowledging the land on which I am presenting from. This land acknowledgement was adapted from the Ontario CLRI webinar, Embracing Diversity, Exploring Our New Toolkit to Support Inclusion in Long-Term Care. And it was held on September 15th, 2020. And it was presented by Kimberly Lopez, who is an assistant professor at the University of Waterloo. So while we are all gathered here virtually, Bruyère is situated on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. And today, this place reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous peoples. As settlers, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must also be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our community. Personal commitments connect each of us to the statements that become easily taken for granted. As a settler, my personal commitment to this acknowledgement is to be reflective of my privileges and the ways my privileges can do both harm and good, and to listen and ask for support on how to do my best in all my relations. Okay, so as I mentioned, our work is supported in part with funding from the Government of Ontario through the Ontario CLRI, and the views expressed here today do not necessarily reflect the views of the province. Without further ado, let's get into some crucial conversations and work together to get unstuck. So Crucial Conversations for Mastering Dialogue teaches 9 powerful skill sets grounded in decades of social science research. And whenever you're stuck, by that I mean like not getting the results or having the relationships that you want, there is typically a crucial conversation that you're either not holding or not holding well. And in this introductory session, you will learn some foundational skills to be on the road to better results and relationships. So let's get started. When we are getting unstuck, we are trying to understand how to spot the crucial conversations that are keeping us from what we want. And we're going to kick things off with a question. So get your fingers ready to type. You're going to put something in the chat. Okay, let's talk about this. Please feel free, pop it in the chat. When you were a child, what strategies and tactics did you use to try to get your own way? Temper tantrums, negotiations. What kinds of things did you do to get your own way when you were a child? Pop it in the chat, please. Let us know, or you can just send it to me directly. If you're uncomfortable sharing details about your childhood, you can also feel free to share how you've seen other children try to get their way. Negotiations for sure, whining, yes. Silent treatment, absolutely. Doing all the chores and complaining. Crying, absolutely. Yes, and seeing some guilt in there. Bargaining for sure. Just do it and ask for forgiveness later. Most definitely. These are gems. Asking politely or trying to manipulate my parents. Asking my dad after asking my mom. Strong move. I like that. Keep asking again and again till I get it. And trying not to get caught, for sure. These are amazing. Okay, team. So let's have a look. Now that you're an adult, what has changed? Has anything changed? Yes, asking when my parents were distracted with other things, also a strong strategy. Has that changed now that you're an adult, or are you still doing that? As an adult, I'm seeing some avoidance, for sure. Anything else that has changed as an adult? Still some guilt in there, for sure. That could be a strategy and approach that's still happening. Anything else that's happening, or is it still the same? It could very well still be the same. Trying to pause and reflect, yes. Upping those negotiation skills, being more clear about what you want. Some logic is being in there as well, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Learning more about EI, thank you for that. Trying to avoid silent treatment, for sure. Larger vocabulary is definitely beneficial. Thank you for that. All right, team, so let's get into the point. What's this all about? So really, it's the strategies that we're using to achieve the results that we care about that are often outdated and ineffective. And that just keeps us stuck, right? We're not going anywhere. So when people use the strategies we just discussed at work, what kind of problems does this create? What do you think can happen if we're using those same strategies that you so graciously shared in the chat? What could happen as a result of these approaches? Could there be some distrust, perhaps? Pop it in the chat. What kinds of things could we be experiencing? Some conflict, yes, thank you for that. Seeing conflict in there. Miscommunications for sure. Some challenges with relationship building. Absolutely. Anything else that could be happening as a result of that? The wrong resolution, unhappiness, distrust, and avoidance, for sure. Solving the problem, relationship breakdown. Yeah. Absolutely. These are things that can definitely happen. Thank you, folks, for that. So what we just are working through is trying to figure out what the point of all of this is. And that's what we're going to be working on together. That's going to be our journey. So let's see an example of someone who is like this car and is stuck, okay? So let's get to know Anya and Kim and discuss an impossible deadline that's happening in this video. So Anya is a project manager who has been asked by her manager, Kim, to come up with a timeline for a key project. Anya is meeting with Kim to review the timeline. And as you're watching this, I want you to think about how you would feel and what you would be concerned about if you were Anya. And we'll talk about it after the video.
So I am really excited to have you and your team digging on this project.
Well, thanks. We're excited too.
Let's talk timelines.
Yes. So we looked it over and we think we can get everything done in just a little over 6 months.
Okay. When I worked it out, it seemed like we should be able to finish this by the end of the quarter.
Oh, wow. I'm glad you brought that up because that's like half the usual time for a project like this.
Yeah, but that's why you're in this role. You have an ability to make the impossible happen.
Thanks, Kim. But yeah, we went over all of the individual tasks and there is no way to get that done in 3 months.
Okay, let me give you some more context here. Other product launches are at stake. I've already said we can do it by then, and the accelerated schedules are in the master plan.
Wait, so you've already made a commitment to the leadership team without consulting me about whether this is feasible?
You know we need a big win this year, and there's a lot of pressure on us. Look, when I went to bat for you to get this position, do you know what I said? I said you're the best person for this job. I said you could get things done in tight timelines.
Okay, let's get back into the chat. If you were Anya, how would you be feeling right now? What kind of emotions would you be experiencing if you were in her shoes? Stressed, absolutely. What else might you be feeling? What kind of emotions are whirling through you at this point? A little angry, yeah. Trapped, not a lot of options being presented there. Some resentment, overwhelmed, frustrated, distress, some self-doubt. Oh, for sure. Did I overestimate? Sorry, boss, that's your problem. Bad planning on your part. It's not mine to resolve. Okay, protective of the team. Yes, she's going to bat for the team as well, who are actually working on that project. What kind of concerns would we have if we were Anya? Like, what are those things that, and you know, protecting the team is one of those things. What other concerns could be present? Having the conversation with the team could be one of the concerns. Wondering if, you know, you're not pulling for the team. Am I selfish? Yeah. Feeling isolated, the workload that's coming. Maybe I'm not a good fit. What an honest statement. Yeah, there could be some reflection happening there. If you say you can do it and you can't, you might look bad on your team. For sure. The reputation of the team. This is going to look poorly on the team. Protecting your team is very important as well. This lady is out to lunch. Yes, that too. So, folks, thank you so much for these messages. This is what we would call a crucial conversation. This is what it's all about, most definitely. Okay, so when we're talking about a crucial conversation, there are 3 elements that combine to form a crucial conversation. So without opposing opinions, you have nothing to discuss. High stakes make it a conversation that we actually care about. And our emotions begin to run strong in the situation. So here's an important reminder. And you're going to get sick of me saying this, but that's okay. I really want to drive it home. Anytime you find yourself stuck, there is likely a crucial conversation you're either not holding or not holding well. Okay? So the problem isn't that crucial conversations are common in our work and lives, because the reality is that they are. The problem is that we don't handle them well, and that causes poor results. So these conversations can be huge stumbling blocks or great opportunities. Depends on our approach. So what you do with these conversations determines the kind of results you're going to get. Crucial conversations can often seem like crossroad conversations. Depending on you handle them, things will get better or they will surely get worse, depending on your approach. So let's work on it. We know that these conversations are incredibly consequential, but they're really difficult to hold. So I actually had the great pleasure of being trained by this awesome human, master trainer, Maria Moss. Now, in this fun video, she and young social scientist Kiara Hughes explain why crucial conversations can be so tough. As you watch this video, I want you to take a minute and think about Bruyère. Okay? What does it look like when a crucial conversation goes poorly? Let's watch.
The irony of crucial conversations is that when it matters most, we are often at our worst. Instead of stepping up and being our best self when stakes are high, we often respond in unproductive ways. But why? To provide some insight, let's take a look at this experiment from a budding young social scientist named Kiara. As you watch, I want you to think about, what do the kids in this video do and why do they do it?
We all know adults stink at talking about tough things, but how about little kids? Here's my experiment. Feed kids wretched brownies, then see if they'll tell you the truth, especially when they think it might hurt your feelings. First, I made the brownies. Lots of chocolate, eggs, flour, but instead of just sugar, I added in salt. Lots of salt.
There's no way they can like these better.
Then, I invited kids of various ages for a taste test. I told them I want to compare ordinary brownies to my special brownies. My dear grandmother's special recipe. My dear dead grandmother's special recipe. I gave them some cash for being such a big help. Okay, here it goes. First, they ate the yummy sugar brownies. Next, they ate the salt bricks. Watch this girl. She can barely choke it down. And how about this girl? Even this kid. Look at that face. And now for the crucial moment. Will they tell me the truth and possibly offend me? I asked them to point to the brownies they like best. No surprise that some try to spare my feelings. But watch, even the one who gagged. And how about really little kids? Yep. Wow. But do you want to know what they really thought? Here guys, I have leftovers. Does anybody want seconds?
Okay, we just have one little outtake here so you can really see what the kids thought. Okay, so what did the kids do here? Now don't be shy. You can be honest about what they did. They lied, right? They absolutely lied. But why did they lie? Well, there are several factors at play here. First, they were being paid. They were on video, and they were helping with the science project. But far and away, the most relevant factor is that they didn't want to hurt Kiara's feelings. The kids in this video made what we call a fool's choice. They felt they had to choose between being honest or being kind. I can tell Kiara what I really think about her and hurt her feelings, or I can say nothing and we can still be friends. When we're children, this choice may not have very serious or dire consequences. And in fact, it often leads to positive results and reinforcement. But that same mindset, that same either or binary thinking doesn't just go away as we grow up, it actually evolves. Say you're sitting in a meeting and your coworker shares an idea and you strongly disagree with it. These are some pretty bad brownies here that your coworker's sharing. And you say to yourself, I can either speak up and be seen as critical and abrasive, or maybe even get tasked with the project, or I can just sit here quietly, stay silent, tacitly agree, and I'll be viewed as the loyal team player. We foolishly convince ourselves that we have to choose between being honest and respectful, between candor and kindness. But why do we get trapped in this either-or thinking? Well, it's actually because our bodies and our brains are literally designed for it. When a conversation turns crucial and those emotions start coming into play, we often feel threatened, and our body responds to that emotional or verbal threat just as it does to a physical threat. That adrenaline gets introduced into our systems, our blood flow increases to major muscle groups, and the logic and reasoning centers of our brain begin to shut down. Now, this is an excellent response if you're wandering through the woods and a predator is threatening to eat you for breakfast. You should prepare to fight or flee. But that's exactly the wrong response to a complex interpersonal interaction, like a crucial conversation. Our fight and flight response is triggered, and we tend to respond in two ineffective ways. First, we move to silence. Maybe we bite our tongue, or we withhold valuable insights. Or sometimes we just accept the unacceptable, saying yes when inside we are screaming no. Or second, we move to what we call verbal violence. It's the opposite end of that communication spectrum, and it's where we tend to control or interrupt. Maybe we lash out, become insulting, and it's all in an effort to compel others to our point of view. Both strategies reliably lead to poor results and ultimately strain our relationships. And in fact, the more time we spend in silence or verbal violence, the worse results we get.
Absolutely. I think we're doing some reflection. Which one do we tend to lean towards? Is it silence or verbal violence, right? But in this particular instance, I want you to take a moment, pop it in the chat. Let me know, in your opinion, what does it look like when a crucial conversation goes poorly in your work environment? What kinds of things have you seen? What kinds of things have you experienced? What kinds of things do you personally exhibit? What kinds of things are we seeing? I definitely lean towards the silent side sometimes. So it's a work in progress. Practice makes perfect. What do you all see? Feel free to pop it in the chat. What kinds of things do you see in your work environment? People get defensive sometimes, for sure, blaming the other person, either taking responsibility or stuff responsibly, for sure, or slough responsibility, excuse me. Final decision left to who's in charge. People shut down, yes. Not enough poker faces. I call that face filter. Yeah, definitely. Silence, you may be telling yourself that your opinion doesn't matter, or that everyone should have their own opinion, even if it's not your own. Yep. Absolutely. Lots of great stuff coming through the chat. Silence, avoidance, hesitation, talking behind other people's backs. Yes, the water cooler issue for sure. Back channeling. Can't work with someone, so just make decisions and go around them. Yeah, just why bother putting the effort? Thank you all so much for sharing. So in summary, the problem really is that when it matters most, we often do our worst. So we either don't hold conversations or we don't hold them well. So the solution is that we need to learn to identify and hold crucial conversations as key to Bruyère's team and interprofessional success. So as I mentioned at the start of this presentation, this is an introduction to crucial conversations for mastering dialogue. So we're going to take a quick look at the skills that folks learn in the full program, just so you get a sense of the bigger picture. Okay, So this is the crucial conversations model. The most important element here is right here in the middle. We are talking about that pool of shared meaning. And that represents the goal of crucial conversations. So everyone in a conversation has ideas, opinions, and views. And everyone, and I mean everyone, has meaning. That is so important. So the goal is to create an atmosphere of safety so that the pool of shared meaning expands and dialogue is achieved. So to help us master dialogue, we need to be able to talk about what to do before, during, and at the end of a crucial conversation. So we are actually right here in the before portion of the conversation. So we are just getting started and learning how to get unstuck by choosing the right conversation that we need to hold. And then it's important to get our emotions in check by mastering our stories. Very important. And in the during portion, that's where the conversation begins to actually start. So we are starting with heart and focusing on good intent. Then the conversation should shift to sharing your message by stating your path honestly and respectfully. And if others misunderstand or misconstrue our good intent and become defensive, folks learn how to make it safe again. So once we've shared our meaning, there are additional skills to help us navigate through the conversation and learn to look, seek mutual purpose, and explore others' paths so we can invite all the meaning, especially that tough feedback. So the conversation then ends with action. How do we move from the talking to actually getting some results? So even though we are only focusing on one of these skills today, we really need to take a moment to address that when it comes to crucial conversations, we often choose the wrong conversation. We tend to think that just because we're talking to someone, we're solving the issue, and that just isn't enough. The skill to help us is actually called unbundling with CPR. So doing what we do, we often tend to think of something else when we see CPR, not a high stakes conversation, but in this instance, C is for content, P is for pattern, and R is for relationship. So let's look at each of these elements together. All right, so we are going to unbundle with CPR with a scenario of an employee being late to work, okay? With content, we would be addressing a single instance of a problem. The immediate consequence is that the employee being late has had consequences, like missing a mandatory meeting, missing a deliverable, causing a delay in progress. There could be all kinds of things, but you're dealing with just a single instance of a problem when you're dealing with the content. If this employee continues to show up late for the next 5 days, you discuss the pattern, because this is now a recurring problem and a pattern of behavior. And at this point, you're beginning to feel like you can't trust this employee to follow through on commitments. So you discuss the relationship because trust is suffering or competence is in question. Okay, so remember that most persistent, resistant problems are caused by a failure to address issues at the pattern or relationship level. Okay, let's think about conversations like a dandelion weed. We're getting into that phase. I'm getting my gardening together, even though I need help with it. But let's think of it as a dandelion weed. So the parts above the surface are like the content issues, and the parts beneath the surface are like pattern and relationship issues. We shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that pulling off the top of the weed kills it any more than having a content conversation gets rid of a long-standing issue. It's not happening. It's going to come right back up again and again. Be aware that when you start talking about pattern and relationship issues, the other person might pull you back to content. It's not a big deal, Carrie. I was late and I'm sorry. But it is a big deal to Carrie, especially if I was late 5 times this month and she has had to explore delegating tasks to someone else because she feels I'm no longer reliable. If she doesn't deal with the pattern and relationship here, the likelihood is very much higher that I will be late again because we weren't talking about the right issue. We weren't having the right conversation. And I'm thinking everything's fine and Carrie's stewing. Let's go back to Anya and see how things are progressing over there.
I said you're the best person for this job. I said you could get things done in tight timelines.
I can see that we're in a tight spot. I don't want to disappoint the leadership team any more than you do. And I want you to know that I am committed to getting things done. But I also want to make realistic goals. And probably more important than that, I want to make sure that we have a relationship where we can openly bring our concerns to the table.
Of course, Anya. But when leadership wants something done, we have to deliver. And the commitment's been made because of the estimates I gave. There's a lot of pressure on us.
I totally get it. You are under a lot of pressure, but I think it's that commitment that concerns me. You asked me to lead this project, and I made a timeline, and before I could even bring it to you, you've made a commitment to some other team without even talking to me, which makes me feel like I'm not even part of the team and that maybe you don't trust me. And then when I push back, your response made me feel like if I say anything contrary, you think I'm not a team player. But maybe I'm completely misinterpreting. So let me know if you have different intentions.
Okay, I hear you. And it's a frustrating situation. I guess I put you in this position that I was pushed into, but I don't know what else to do. Commitments have been made.
May I suggest that in the future, we discuss things together before the deadlines are finalized?
Yeah, that sounds fair. We need to figure out what to do in this situation.
Yeah, and I would love to discuss that, but I can't help feeling like we need to revisit the plan rather than risk the project just falling apart down the road.
What a shift. Anya has been able to demonstrate some crucial conversation skills. So as you watch that video, thinking about CPR, content, pattern, relationship, do any of those apply to what you just saw? Did Anya deal with content? Did you see anything about pattern? Did you see anything about relationship? Pop it in the chat. What did you see? What did she do really well? Let's hear it. Let's give Anya some chat applause for her performance in this tough conversation. Yeah, she thought on her feet very well. She was really able to think, what can we do to smooth things over here? Thinking about that relationship, absolutely. That really brings it home. Prevention of that future occurrence. Thank you for that. Yes, preventing a pattern from happening. Stayed very calm, empathized for sure, gave her opinion and opened things up to hear the other side. Yes. She explained her side of the issue without being emotional or mean. Absolutely. Respectful dialogue, so important. She was honest and composed. So true. Those are absolutely on point with what we experienced. She addressed that pattern of overpromising without team buy-in, relationship, working together effectively, content, discussing the work plan. Thank you for that, CPR. She acknowledged the other person's perspective and tricky position and empathized with it, for sure. Asked for confirmation of her interpretations. Yes, getting that buy-in. What do you think about this? She used I statements, for sure. These are great. Thank you all so much for that. Okay, so there was a lot going on there, and I really love that she created that mutuality as well. Some of you addressed that. You know, I can see we're in a tough spot here. So what can we do, right? I identify this is not easy. She's clear about what she wants to see happening going forward. Love it. So let's just recap the big ideas from this quick lesson, and I mean quick, on getting unstuck, okay? So if you're stuck, folks, anytime you find yourself there, there's likely a crucial conversation that you're Are you saying it? Are you? Yeah, I said it a few times. You're either not holding, going to silence, or not holding well. You're going to verbal violence. So definitely reflect on that. Take a pause, think about, okay, where am I right now? What is happening? We call it the hazardous 30. The first 30 seconds of that conversation, we were like, oh, I think we've just gone crucial. And you have to make an adjustment to make sure that you navigate the situation in the right way. So you want to refuse the fool's choice as well. You can be 100% candid and absolutely 100% respectful. It is possible when you're having a tough conversation. Let's never forget that. And you want to use CPR, content, pattern, relationship. Choose that right conversation, folks, when you're actually engaging in a crucial conversation. So important. People who improve their crucial conversation skills most often do so by working on just one skill at a time. And it is my sincere hope that you are now feeling like you are able to be on the road to better results and relationships. So that is just a really, and I mean really quick touch on crucial conversations. And I thank you so much for your attention. Just gonna let you know that there are a number of ways you are able to communicate with the Ontario CLRI, including visiting our website, following us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can also sign up to receive updates from us from our e-newsletter. So I throw the floor back over to you, Caitlin, as we navigate some more conversation with some questions, if there are any. Thank you all so much for your time.
Okay, perfect. So as Natalie mentioned, we're now going to move over to the Q&A portion of the session. This is a reminder that attendees can submit your questions to the Q&A function, or if you'd like to ask a question out loud, to please use the raise your hand feature and we'll be able to unmute you. So maybe I'll start with a question, Natalie.
Sure.
So I can imagine for some people, kind of initiating these crucial conversations would be a bit intimidating. Do you have any tips for, I guess, kind of gaining the confidence to initiate the conversation?
Yeah, that's such a great point. And thank you for bringing that up, because it is tough. And it's tough because there could be some outcomes that are negative if it's not done right. So, you know, having emotions about it means that you care, but it's how you manage those emotions that's important, right? So making it safe is another part of the discussion when it comes to crucial conversations. And I love that you brought this up because it's so key. I know that we were in the before stage of the conversation. We weren't actually having dialogue at this point when we're getting unstuck. But when you are engaging in dialogue, think about, where am I having this conversation? You know, once upon a time, I was a bedside nurse, and there is, you know, sometimes some negotiation that happens when you're dealing with your assignment. And sometimes that can happen in places that might not be appropriate. You're not going to be talking about it in the hallway. You're going to find a safe space where you and that other person can have dialogue, sitting eye to eye, standing eye to eye, and speaking at a calm, pleasant tone to figure out how you can move forward. You're not having it in a space where you're trying to find the opportunity to embarrass the person by having a lot of folks that are not even a part of the conversation present. Is it safe? Ask yourself, is it safe? And also ask yourself, what do you think that it means to have a conversation that is mutually beneficial? If you're only thinking about how it's going to be a win for you, you have to reevaluate, because it's not just about you. And that's really what it's about. It's finding a way to mutually agree, find mutual purpose to go forward and find a resolution. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So we're starting to see some questions come through. So one of the attendees has asked, how do you navigate a conversation where you're trying to take it crucial and the other person just shrugs it off and tries to change the topic?
That's a great one, because that can happen quite a bit. And I think that that's one of those things where you have to ask yourself the why behind the behavior, right? Again, we dig a little deeper on this further on in the program, but mastering your story, right? So you're in a position where you think that this person is blowing it off, but it could be that this person just feels completely uncomfortable or unprepared to have that conversation. So try and understand why and stick to the facts. So if I'm having a conversation with Caitlin and I get the sense that we're not connecting, I just quite simply ask, like, Caitlin, I get the sense that you're not really engaged in this conversation. Can you let me know if that's correct, or just let me know how you're feeling about what's happening right now? And Caitlin then has an opportunity to tell me what she's experiencing and feeling. I'm not sitting there guessing because I could guess that Caitlin has something to do. She's looking at her watch. She's got her computer up. She's typing away. There could be a number of things that I could think are happening as a result of the actions that she's doing, but I need to know the facts. And the only one that knows the answer to that is Caitlin. So I have to ask her, this is what I'm sensing. This is what I'm seeing. Can you tell me if this is right, or do you want to give me a bit more insight on how we can possibly have a more direct conversation right now? Maybe Caitlin's not prepared to have the conversation right now. So maybe it's kind to give her an opportunity to say, you know what, let's table this. Can we meet in about 10 minutes in the break room and chat a bit more about it and see how she feels? It could just be a safety issue, but you don't know. You got to master that story and find out why. Hopefully that helps.
Perfect. And then we have a question from Carrie. Are there resources available for those who wish to learn more?
Absolutely. Great question, Carrie. So what I'll do after this is closed, I'm actually going to send you folks the opportunity to do a quiz online. It's to figure out if you defer to silence or violence, and just understand that being self-aware is so important, right? So you'll be able to perform that quiz at your leisure, and at that site you'll be able to get more access to more resources via Crucial Conversations. Thank you for that question, Carrie. Great question.
Okay, perfect. So I think that's it for questions. Thank you so much, Natalie, for joining us today, and thank you to the attendees for tuning in. As always, if you have any questions about the Research Minds series, please forward your request to our general email at birb@bruyere.org. If you have any questions about today's session, feel free to direct them to Natalie. I'm sure she'll be able to answer them. I also encourage our attendees to check out our research resources page on our external website. Here you will find previous Research Minds presentations along with some other resources, and I'll include the links in the chat. Lastly, I'll also include the registration link for our upcoming Research Minds session on April 26th with Luke Turcott. He will be discussing identifying and responding to the needs of older adults across the continuum of care through data linkage. And so thanks again, Natalie.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you amazing folks that attended. It was only so much fun because you were so engaged. So I truly appreciate it. And thank you to you, Caitlin and Jasmine, and the entire BRI team. It's been a blast. Thank you. Take good care.